Based on the great new book Uncovering Mindfulness, In Search of a Life More Meaningful, we bring you a new series of podcasts called From Mindfulness with Love by Paul Mudd, the author. Here's today's podcast. We hope you enjoy.
Are you in search of a life more meaningful? Welcome to the podcast that takes you from mindful to mindful. Leadership, resilience, compassion, success. Join the journey. From Mindfulness with Love, here's your host, Paul Mudd.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast in which I call for a mindful revolution. Let's start off by asking two questions. Firstly, why have a mindful revolution? And secondly, what do we need a mindful revolution for? Now, these may well sound kind of like the same question, but they're not. In our previous podcast in this new series From Mindfulness with Love, we looked at mindfulness and the brain. So, in seeking to answer our two questions today, let's firstly look at the case for mindfulness. Next, let's examine some of the benefits of mindful living for you and for me. And third, let's set out a 5-point plan for a mindful revolution and see exactly what that might look like. Well, to begin, I think there is a very compelling case for mindfulness already out there, if you care to piece it together. And I've touched on some of these pieces in other podcasts already. So let me take a moment to pull some of these together. Firstly, costs of stress-related absenteeism for the UK economy are running around £23 billion per year. The cost to employers works out at something around 1.24 billion, and over 105 million working days a year are currently being lost. 75 to 90% of all visits to the doctors are thought to be stress-related. In the UK alone in 2013, 50 million scripts for depression were written. In the UK, currently 9 million of us are currently taking some form of antidepressant pill. In fact, all mental illness already costs the UK economy a grand total of between 70 and 100 billion a year, whilst the World Health Organization believes that mental illness will overtake cancer and heart disease as the biggest take on global health resources by the year 2030. Sadly, 500,000 children in the UK are currently diagnosed with stress and depression, and the modal onset for depression is now estimated to be between 13 and 14 years of age. But is any of this surprising when you consider the kind of world we now live in? A world where many of us are spending on average over 9 hours a day on screens and checking mobile devices, which is more than most of us sleep each night. On average, we check our phones 150 plus times a day. 15% of us admit to feeling unusually tired every day, whilst the Royal College of Psychologists thinks the actual figure is closer to 20%. Meanwhile, and this is a very interesting statistic, 1 in 4 of us apparently admit to checking our mobile device whilst having sex. And by 2020, and that's just 5 years' time, there will be over 50 billion connected devices worldwide. Okay, putting aside the picture that we're not trying to have of those 1 in 4 checking their mobile devices whilst otherwise engaged. Well, it's been described as like having your brightness switch turned up, whilst some of the particular benefits include greater concentration, increased creativity, and an increased focus. Greater mental and physical resilience have been cited, as well as a greater ability to relax and improve sleeping patterns. Also, a big reduction in stress levels are noted, with better decision making and better relationships. People are saying they feel more compassionate, with greater gratitude, increased happiness, and more kindness, and also a heightened emotional intelligence. And whilst mindfulness is not a quick fix, very real changes, as we've already noted, can be felt in as little as a few weeks, practicing for only 5 to 10 minutes a day. So finally, what are the 5 steps to bring about a mindful revolution, which I talk about in my book? Well, every journey begins with the first step, and that is to begin by changing the story, one conversation, one innovation, one leap of faith at a time. Secondly, to give common humanity, compassion, and collaboration real weight and value. Thirdly, to recognize and make mindfulness a key part of maintaining wellness and promoting well-being and well-doing. Fourth, to ensure that day-to-day happiness is at the heart of every policy decision. And happiness and well-being are critical indicators of a nation's economic and social development and should be a key aim of policy. That's actually taken from the 2015 World Happiness Report by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the SDSN, which is also backed by the United Nations. And this report actually recommends making happiness a central focus for research, policy, and practice across the globe. And our 5th step for a mindful revolution is to proactively uncover our mindfulness and live it without words, just allowing it to be part of who we are. I set out this 5-point plan at the end of my book, and I really believe that as we begin to live mindfully ourselves and consider the real value of happiness, we must also invest early in the lives of our children so that they may grow to become independent, productive, fulfilled, and happy adults. So, in the next podcast, we'll be taking a look at mindfulness and education. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you, and you can contact me by email at paul@themudpartnership.co.uk, and that's mud with 2 Ds. You can also follow the continuing journey on Twitter at The Mindful Book, and that's with a capital T, a capital M, and a capital B. And of course, you can read more about it all in my book called Uncovering Mindfulness in Search of a Life More Meaningful, which is available on Amazon. So, Viva the Mindful Revolution, and until the next time, hell yeah.